Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rants. We've got some fantastic questions for you today on this side of the screen, I hope. And we're going to get to them right away. We've got loads to get through, so we'll be firing through them pretty quickly. So make sure you pay attention. Before we jump in though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Most importantly, once you've hit subscribe, a little bell appears. That's called the Kendo Bell. If you ring that bell there, that is going to make sure that you get better at Kendo. It's a scientific fact. So make sure you ring that bell. And most importantly, if you like the videos that I put out, don't forget to shop at KendoStar.com. That's really important, as that's what pays for the channel. That's my website, of course, and that's what it pays for the channel. It pays for a roof over my head, food in my kids' mouths, and it also pays for amazing, wonderful, fantastic Kendo equipment for you as well. And if you don't believe me how good it is, then go and check how well we're rated. We're the highest rated on Trustpilot. So yeah, it's really, really awesome. So go and shop at KendoStar.com. Right, okay. Starting Kendo for the first time in April. Any advice other than KendoStar? Shop at KendoStar, which is what I already plan to do. Good. Okay, so basically, I posted a video on the thread that you need to go and watch, the 5 things you need to know before starting Kendo. Otherwise, there's not much else you really need to worry about. Just, you know, go along with an open mind and just do your best. And I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time. Okay, just try and be open to it and follow what your teacher says as much as you possibly can. Next one, do you prepare for Kendo Rant by reading the questions beforehand, or do you prefer the spontaneity of reading them live while recording the video? So no, I do read them beforehand. I do have a quick read through beforehand, mainly just to check that there's nothing in there that's like offensive, or you know, no swearing or nothing sort of political or anything like that, because I don't talk about anything like that. And sometimes, I mean, there's a few ones today actually where I've had to sort of look into them a little bit deeper because, you know, it needs a little bit of research. I hesitate to use the word research, but I don't, you know, I do like the sort of spontaneity of it as well. So yeah, I tend to just give them a cursory read over. If there's something that needs a little bit more looking into, I'll do that. And then, yeah, go from there. Next one, I've discovered there's a massive multitude of colours and patterns for gi and hakama. Other than navy blue, are there any other colours or patterns acceptable to wear in a Kendo setting? White is acceptable, generally, but navy blue is the best one. Other than that, no, not really. Some people wear black because it looks similar to white, but it's not correct. You certainly shouldn't wear it for grading. Yeah. The kendogi, it's not a kendogi, but the uagi, as you might call it, the upper half, and the hakama are traditional Japanese clothing outside of a kendo setting. So of course there's all sorts of different colours and patterns and stuff for that. But in kendo, it's a uniform, all right? It's supposed to be uniform. So yeah, wearing sort of different colours it's not necessarily acceptable. And there's rules in some shiai as well that do prohibit it. Generally they're usually kids shiai, because there was about 10 years ago there was a like a fad in Japan of making like pink hakama and red hakama and stuff like that. And as soon as they sort of started appearing at shiai, they got banned pretty quick. So yeah, let's stick with the navy blue or the white if you really want something. I mean, the white looks a little bit different if you want to look a little bit different. Some people think that even that's a little bit too flashy or what have you. I don't. I've worn white ones in the past as well. I don't wear them that often because they're just a little bit hard to care for now compared to people. The argument for wearing white was that they were easier to care for than an aizome dyed hakama and kendogi, which they are, because you can wash them after every keiko. So, you know, you've got the benefit of sort of them being a bit more hygienic as well. But now you've got like synthetic uniforms like our kachi set, which is amazing. Like I just wear that now. Like I used to wear a white one in the summer sometimes, so I could just wash it all the time. But like I say, now there's the synthetic stuff like the kachi and what have you. You can wash that all the time anyway. And yeah, I can keep wearing the blue. So whereas then the white, with the white you have to worry about it getting stained and stuff like that with the blue from your Borg or your opponent's Borg and stuff like that. So yeah. Next one, 2 questions that have come up recently. 1, when attempting Nukido, I find that as I perform Seme and they strike for men, I go to do Nukido and my opponent aborts their men strike and slams their elbows down and tries to cover Do. Even if I hit Do, it often leads to jarring catch or thrust down on my shinai. Is this a common or proper way to block Do strikes? Or is one of us doing something wrong? And 2, we have a particularly tall Kendokai in our group. And when he meets in Subzeri, he often has his hands basically at the face of his opponent. So his opponent ends up with his hands way up high to meet kote to kote and lead to some particularly odd interactions. Again, is this normal, and how should the shorter guy deal with it? Thanks. Cool. Great questions. Really, really good questions. So first, the reason that's happening when you try to do Nukido, that they're noticing and dropping their hands to kind of negate your Do strike, is it's not them doing something wrong. Your Do is not happening at the right time, all right? What that means is that they haven't committed fully to their men strike, okay? So you haven't been able to get them to either attack fully with full commitment to their men strike, and instead you've kind of effectively, it's hard, right? Because it's Nukido, frankly, is a very high level technique in lots of ways. In lots of ways. So yeah, partly your Seme isn't working effectively against your opponent because they're not feeling comfortable to attack with full commitment. So if that's the case, if your opponent isn't attacking with full commitment either because you haven't given them that sort of feeling, that sort of opportunity, or they don't have any other option, is actually the more accurate way. But I mean, we're talking really high level 5th dan, 6th dan level stuff there, where you sort of put them in where you've kind of closed them down almost into a corner, and the only option they've got is to sort of really throw everything away and attack. Now, if that's sort of not where you're at, then Nukido is it's not really a useful waza against a partner that doesn't attack with full commitment. Okay, so if you're finding that they're not attacking you with full commitment and you can't get them to do that, then it's about waza selection. All right, so maybe Suriage waza would be better, for example. All right, just as a tip, like I don't think I ever really managed to get to grips with Nukido until I was 5th dan. All right, so men Nukido, yeah. In terms of your second question, that's a really good one as well. No, look, if your opponent's really tall, right, and they come to Subzeri and then their hands are at your face level, you shouldn't put your hands up to meet them, all right? You should keep your hands where you should have them. Subzeri shouldn't be kote to kote, all right? It should be tsuba to tsuba, all right? So it has to happen between you, the two of you. You have to kind of not agree because you don't talk, but there's a moment between the two of you where you both recognize where the tsuba should lock together and sit at the correct height in order for you both to be able to make strikes. If his hands are too high, he's not going to be able to do waza. So even if he's tall, it's not really going to work. All right. If you end up like this against him, your door's wide open, you're probably going to put yourself in an off-balance position if he pushes you. So you're better just to keep your hands at the normal height that you would for Tsubazeri. And if he starts to lower them, then you can sort of meet somewhere in the middle, but you don't want to put yourself off balance. All right, you need to kind of figure that out, how you're going to deal with it. And if he's not going to engage you in Tsubazeri, then you can start to look at doing Hikiwaza and stuff like that, because I don't think he's going to be in a good position to defend himself either, because if you're not in Tsubazeri, you're not in a good position to respond to Hikiwaza either. So that's one thing. And two, the thing for him to be aware of is if he goes to a tournament or something like that and he doesn't engage properly in Tsubazeri with his partner, just because he's tall, he can't just put his hands in the face. All right, he has to adjust to meet the Tsuba to Tsuba. If the referees feel like one of the parties isn't fairly trying to engage in Tsubazeri, you get penalized. All right. Next one. Hi Andy, as my new KS Borg is not getting used, that's obviously because of the situation at the minute, I am taking the time to set it up so it fits nicely when the time comes. Do you have any tips for shaping the kote beton tutsu? And also, when you have shortened the kote himo, any tips for binding the ends? So the kote beton, that's the part that they strike on the kote. Sometimes it's called the tsutsu. Tsutsu just means tube, by the way. So yeah, I think kote beton is a more appropriate word personally. So it shouldn't be shaped like a bell. All right, it shouldn't shape out like that. It should sit pretty much parallel with your arms as much as possible. So you need to fix the himo to do that. But otherwise, it doesn't need an awful lot of shaping. Right? If it's flaring out like a bell, just tighten the himo up a little bit, especially at the sort of lower end, so that it comes into a sort of more uniform shape. After you cut the himo, all you need to do to deal with the ends is get a bit of sellotape, just the kind of inch wide stuff, and just a bit of that around the end, like you see at the end of a shoelace, and that'll be absolutely fine. Don't do that on your menhimo though. All right, one of my pet hates in life is people that put tape on the end of the menhimo. All right, don't do that. Learn to shorten them properly. Right. What are some non-kendo exercises that best complement a kendo physique? For example, I've heard doing yoga can help balance and improve posture. If you have time to practice another martial art or training regimen, what would be the most efficient? I haven't a clue, to be honest, because I've only ever really dedicated myself to kendo. I've obviously hit the gym quite a bit, and done some stuff in the gym that I think helps with kendo, stuff like wrist curls and calf raises and stuff like that. I've got no idea about yoga. I haven't a clue, to be honest. I've never done it. I've got no experience of it. I don't know if it helps kendo or not. I don't know anyone that's really good at kendo that's also like really into yoga, I'll say that, but I'm sure there are people, so I don't know. If I had time to practice another martial art or training regimen, what would it be? I don't know. I don't know. Do I have to? I don't want to do anything other than kendo. Like, I can't. I said this before. Like, I can't be unfaithful to kendo. Right? It's wrong. It's wrong. But I don't know. I'd probably do something like Muay Thai or something like that. I used to do that when I was a kid. So I've got a bit of a grounding in that. Mainly just to kind of get my fitness levels up a little bit. That's something I've considered a little bit in the past, but I don't think any of the techniques applicable to kendo in the slightest. Next one. Why are Shinpan referred to as Senpai when being announced, even though in some taikais like the All Japans, all of them are Hanshi 8th Dan? Wouldn't Sensei be more appropriate? So we had a little chat on this thread because I asked you, didn't I, when you posted it, where did you hear them being referred to as Senpai? So what you're talking about is at the start of a Shiai, like a big Shiai, they often announce the Shinpan. And you posted a video to some where the Shinpan were announced as their name plus Senpai as their suffix. And I did explain a little bit in the comments there, but basically that's pretty much specific to university level shiai. It's not only university level shiai, but it's super contextual. Now, the videos you posted were the university tournaments, and that's because the senseis that are doing Shinpan there are generally all graduates of universities that are competing. All right. So from the point of view of the players in the tournament, and also lots of the people that are involved in the tournament, they're senpai from university, or they are the senpai. It's a really Japanese thing. All right, but it's not a common thing, right? The All Japan Championships, they don't refer to them as senpai, or the Tozai or the All Japan Kendo Federation tournaments. It's specifically a situation where there is an obvious senpai kohai relationship between the players and the people involved in the tournament and the Shinpan. So you asked as well, is it the same at high school tournaments? It's not the same at high school tournaments, because the Shinpan at the high school tournaments are generally teachers from other schools, and that's what they're there in that capacity as teachers from other schools. So they're just referred to as sensei because they are sensei. And they might also be the senpai of some of the other people there, and they usually are. And those specific people, when talking to that sensei, might refer to them as such and such senpai. So yeah, it's not it's not the norm, but it's, you know, like it. For example, if it was what they call an OB sen, which is like an OB is old boy, so it's like the people who graduated the school, like an internal high school kendo club, OB sen, where they often have it where like the graduates of the high school will play a match against the current students, and then some of the other OBs will Shinpan. So they might refer to them as senpai, for example, because in that context they're the senpai. It's not the norm, all right? It's not the norm, but it does happen. It's not connected to grade at all. There's people who are 8th dan that call people who are 6th dan and 7th dan senpai, because they are their senpai in other spheres, or they're older than them and stuff like that. I mean, I've seen, for example, I'm not going to drop names, but one I can think of particularly is an extremely famous Hanshi 8th dan taking the lower seat to a 7th dan sensei because he was his senpai. And, you know, I mean, I'm talking about like god level famous sensei, the sort of sensei you never see on the sort of lower side. You know, I've seen that side as well, and that's what kind of made me sort of really start to be curious about it and learn a little bit more about it as well. Next one, any tips on how to remove an extremely tight scarf without damaging the grip or yourself in the process? Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because they're put on with machines, so that's why it's quite difficult to get them off. But yeah, the tip is, and I know someone's already mentioned using rubber gloves, or you can use a piece of sheet rubber, but that won't help on its own, especially if you're like holding the shinai and then holding the you know, you've got your rubber glove on and then you've got your sky and you're trying to pull this way. You're never going to get it off. All right, what you want to do is you want to get your shinai. I'm trying to find some. I don't have a shinai here, but this is I do have a shinai, so let me grab a shinai. Okay, so here's a shinai. Right, don't try to do it like this. All right, this is not going to work. Instead, right, get your rubber glove or your piece of rubber and put the tsukagashira on a table or a hard surface, all right, that's not going to move, right? And then push it downwards towards the table this way, like that, and you'll get a lot more success out of it, because the machines that they use to put it on grip the thing and they slide it on this way, but the machines that they use to take it off, you put the shinai, because the machine that they put it on with, it'll take it off as well. They move a little thing on it, and then the same gripper things are used, and then it's basically a metal block that slides down that puts it against that, and then it grips it and slides it down using it against the block. So that's what you want to do to get that little bit of extra grip on it. All right. It's still hard though. It's still going to need quite a bit of elbow grease, I'm not going to lie. Okay, next one. Could you explain the Fujiyama angle of the wrist you showed on Zoom? My kitchen is not the perfect dojo and was not 100% focused during the explanation. Really good, Keiko. Thanks a lot. Second question about the same body area. Okay, about the hand, I guess. Can you talk about shimeru? Okay. So I did post a little comment after this asking where you'd heard the term shimeru. And that's going to be a bit of a theme in a few of the questions from today. So in the online Keiko that we did on Wednesday, which was really great, thank you everybody that joined it. What I was talking about is, let's see if we can get this on camera. When you make a strike, all right, when you make a strike, so we can get that in, all right. I'm leaning back here so that we can, this angle's not correct, it should be straight like that, okay? But when you make a strike, let me see if I can move a bit, all right? Make a strike like this, yeah? This wrist section here, yeah? That sort of looks a little bit like Mount Fuji. It's sort of flat here, all right? You see how it looks like a little mountain, that the negative space? The way I had it explained to me, I thought of Mount Fuji just on the top of my head, all right? It's not a way it's normally taught, because the way it's normally taught, or at least the way it was taught to me, was that it should, that negative space here should resemble the henoji. Henoji, it's the letter he from the Japanese hiragana, which looks something, if I can get it to go into Japanese, it looks something like that, yeah? Looks like that, yeah? You see how it's like a little, yeah? Is that on the screen? Yeah, that's what it looks like that. All right, that's the sort of shape that the underside of your wrist should make, all right? At the moment of impact. Pam here, pam, like that. Okay, that's what I was talking about. And it's the same on the right hand as well, bam. Same on the right hand as well. Okay. Now, as for your second question about shimeru, all right, I've never really heard that term used that much, but shimeru means to close or to kind of, in this case, it would mean to squeeze the shinai. So it's talking about that squeeze of the shinai of your tenuchi, which is what you do at the last moment, bam, this way, okay, but not before. All right, at the moment of impact, you squeeze the shinai, pam, this way, like that. At least I think that's what I mean. It could also be used to describe how you close your fingers around the shinai, though. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, and this is what happens, and it's the same a bit later on with another question I've already noticed, right? These terms that come up, or shimeru, or whatever, they're not hard and fast terminology, okay? These aren't like set hard and fast terminology. This is language, this is Japanese language. Some teachers might use that word, another teacher might use a different word. Like one teacher might use shimeru, another teacher might use shiboru, and another teacher might use, I don't know, something else again. So it's difficult, all right? When that comes across to the West and we put it into English, we often think, oh, well, that's a different word that was used. It must be something different, and it's not always, right? It's it's just somebody chose a different word to describe something. So yeah, there's lots of words in Japanese, and lots of them sound the same. So that's what makes it even harder. Next one. Hi Andy. Outside of the fantastic AJKF official guide for kendo instruction, do you have any good kendo books that you would recommend? Thanks for your hard work. I never miss a kendo rant, and recommend everyone shops at KendoStar when I get a chance. Good, thank you very much. Thank you, that's very much appreciated. Right, well, yes, I've got a bookcase here. Here's one, Kendo Approaches for All Levels by Honda Sotaro Sensei. That's a fantastic book, and Honda Sensei is amazing. And another one is Kendo Culture of the Sword by Alexander Bennett Sensei. Anything by Bennett Sensei, you can't go wrong. Right, you absolutely can't go wrong. Bennett Sensei is an absolute genius, and I'm not using that term lightly. Yeah, the guy is a genius, and I'm saying that as someone that like knows him. Like I'm in awe of the guy constantly. So go, you know, anything that Bennett Sensei has been involved with, you can't go wrong with that. Next one. Hi Andy, I love the webinar on Borga and was wondering if you had a thought about doing a video on the history of Kendo as a whole. Love the content and love the community. Keep up the good work. Okay, so about the sort of history of Kendo, no, I don't see myself doing a sort of webinar type thing about the history of Kendo because it's just not my area of expertise. The reason I'm sort of leaning off screen as I'm talking here is I'm picking up these books again. There's plenty about that in this book that I just mentioned. And I don't know if you can still get this. I don't know if you can still get this book. Now, Bennett Sensei gave me this book himself. So I don't know what the situation is. It was a few years ago. It's when it first came out. But this is a book called The Bilingual Guide to the History of Kendo. I think that's one of the best ones out there on it. And secondly, another genius, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, especially when it comes to all things related to sort of Kendo and the history of Kendo and sort of the peripheral area of Kendo, like how it interacts with Kenjutsu, and or as I'm sure he would say it is Kenjutsu, is obviously George McCall Sensei, that you can see his work at kenshi247.net, and there's absolute wealth of knowledge there. That's just, yeah, I mean, it's well above my pay grade. So, so yeah, I might do another webinar on something like Shinai. I can talk to you about Waza, but I don't feel like I'm not in the league of the big hitters out there when it comes to the history of Kendo. I know a bit about it, but it's not where my talents lie. Next one. Hi Andy, could you explain the difference between Harai Waza and Hari Waza, please? Is there a difference in when they are useful against an opponent, against, for example, against a very rigid or very soft center? So this was another one that's similar to the Shimeru thing, all right? Now, I had to do a bit of research into this, and in fact, I did comment on this, didn't I? Saying, like, where have you heard Hari Waza? Because to be honest, I'd never heard of it before. And, you know, you link me to something and yeah, it's cool. It makes sense. I did a bit of a search in Japanese as well. And there are some sort of people out there that do use the term. So the way I understand it to have been sort of interpreted is that it's similar to Harai Waza, but it's very unusual. This is what, I'll tell you how I'll approach this, right? I'll tell you what I read, and then I'll tell you what I think, all right? What I read was that it's an unusual type of waza that's similar to Harai, which is where you slap the shinai from left to right or right to left, the opponent's shinai, in order to make an opening. It's similar to that, except you don't use as big a motion, you kind of just use a smaller motion, and obviously you need good wrist work. And then there's other parts of people saying that it's when you do that at the moment your opponent's about to attack, and it kind of stops them dead in their tracks. So yeah, that's what I read that it is. For me, and for what I think a lot of people, it's the same as Harai Waza. And what we're doing is we're sort of really splitting hairs in terms of, well, this kind of Harai Waza is actually Hari Waza. I'm not sure it needs its own term. It's just another type of Harai Waza, because Harai to Harao just means to hit or to slap. All right, and Hari is from Haru, which is also means the same. So it's kind of, you know, like I don't know. It sounds to me a little bit like somebody overthought it a little bit. There's nothing in any official Zenkennen literature that I can find about it. I can find Harai, but I can't find Hari. So, like, I don't think you need to worry about it all too much. I'm not sure there's a huge difference. and I'm not even sure if I don't think there's a big enough difference for them to sort of qualify as separate types of Waza. Let's put it that way. And I don't even think that you could say, well, it works well against this type of opponent or that type of opponent. I don't even think that, like, it's often taught, oh, well, against this kind of opponent, Harai Waza works well. Like, if they've got a soft center, and if they've got hard center, then a different type of Waza works well. I don't think that's the case either. It really depends on the person you're with, on the opponent. I don't think it's right to sort of blanketly put that out there. It doesn't, not in my experience anyway. Like, I think Harai Waza works equally well on someone that's got a very, for the most part, very strong center, and someone who's got a very soft center. I think it works the same. Not the same, but it works equally as effectively. For example, other techniques not so much, but so yeah, like, it's probably not the answer you were expecting or hoping for, but like, I'd never even heard of Harai Waza, and I'm not surprised. I think it's a little bit of an over complication where it doesn't need to be. Hi Andy, what's a good way to create Seme and pressure on an opponent, and what's a good way to respond to Seme? That's a good question. I wish I knew the answer. I don't know. Experience. It's a great question. It is, and I know. I'm not. Don't take me the wrong way here. I'm not I'm not making light of it, but it is. What you're asking is an extremely difficult thing. I don't. It depends. But look, you create Seme and put pressure on an opponent by making them feel like they're going to be struck, right? And that comes from your ability to portray your own competence onto their sort of consciousness. So you can't just sort of talk the talk. That's why, like, this is one of the things, right, is that I was talking about this the other day with my wife, funnily enough. But this is why, for example, age, to some extent, you tend to get better at Kendo as you get older in lots of ways. And that's why, for example, I can practice Kendo with Japanese high school students, and they may be very, very good top level high school students, but from my position, they're high school students. So I don't feel intimidated or pressured by them, and I have enough confidence in my own ability in Kendo not to let that break under their sort of speed and physical ability. And because of that, it means that my Seme becomes very effective against them, even though they could be very skilled players in Shiai amongst kids of the same age. Because it just comes from accumulated experience that portrays itself somewhat as confidence, but also, like I say, you can't just talk the talk. You've got to be able to walk the walk as well in order for your Seme to work, because otherwise it won't. And in terms of responding to Seme, you've got to have better Seme than they've got. That's it. While practicing in Keiko or testing in Shiai, what do you think is the worst thing to do? Examples like being incorrect posture, foot placement, standing still. Okay, so it depends how you want to approach this. But obviously the worst thing you can do is stuff that's like disrespectful, rude, or breaks the rules. But not withstanding that, not being able to wear your equipment properly is one of the worst things. Like, I will, no joke, like, if I'm on a grading panel, I don't care what you're grading for, you're going to fail if you aren't wearing your board properly, right? I'm going to fail you on that. Like, there's plenty of stuff out there. I've put out a lot of it out myself, teaching you how to wear your kit. All right, it's easy stuff. So I don't care if you turn up for IQ. I don't care if you turn up for fourth dan. If your hemo aren't tied properly, or you know, you look like a mess, you ain't getting through. And in terms of practical stuff, it's very difficult to say a specific thing, because what you'll find is that most people, if they do one thing particularly wrong, it tends to be the root cause of several other problems. So for example, if someone's feet are too wide apart, you'll often find that results in the left foot being turned out. It also results in poor posture when striking, and it also results in poor tenuchi when striking. Right, all those things tend to be connected together. And and those sort of people, you say, look, you need to bring your left foot up here, bring the left foot up here, and when you bring the left foot up here, it comes straight, and suddenly their posture gets better and the strikes become better. So it's very hard to pinpoint one specific thing. So yeah, I think, but foot placement's a big one. Seeing as you mentioned it, all right, I think foot placement is a huge one. Not enough of us pay enough attention to basic footwork practice, basic ashisabaki. It's got such a huge impact on your kendo overall, that you just can't afford to neglect it. But yeah, it's very easy to do because it's mundane and it's boring. But you know, it's the difference between doing kendo well and doing it not so well. Okay, last one. Hi, Andy. Thoroughly enjoyed the Zoom session this week. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving up your time to do them. No problem. Thank you for joining me. I saw a video once of a bamboo door being made. The craftsman was sat holding it together with his feet as it was built. How much of handmade bogu is made with the crafter sitting on the floor? And when did door start being primarily made out of molded plastic rather than bamboo? Okay, good question. So, a very large amount of bogu is made by people who are sat on the floor. You got to realize in Japan, sitting on the floor is like a cultural norm. Chairs aren't like a normal thing in traditional Japanese life, right? These days, more so are, but like sitting on the floor is still a huge part of Japanese society. You could go into a restaurant and there's no chairs, right? That's not unusual. And yeah, it's really common. Most craftsmen use their legs as well as their arms as their crafting. Like you say, the bamboo dough using their feet to put it together. I know a lot of people that do the men kumi, they're putting the men together. They also use their knees and their thighs to hold the thing as they're doing it. All right, they sit with their legs crossed. So it's very, very common for the craftsman to be sat down on the floor. In terms of the door being made of plastic, well, it's interesting. Actually, before plastic came fiber, and you can still get fiber door. Actually, they're made of like a compressed paper, but it feels like plastic. I mean, it's almost like paper mache, but like 100 times stronger. It feels and looks just like plastic. Like I've got a door. It's a bright yellow door. I got it recently. And that's fiber, and I got that because I wanted to see what a fiber door would be like, and I'm considering sort of adding them to KendoStar actually, because they're a little bit lighter than the plastic ones. Other than that, they perform very similarly. The only thing with them is they're a little bit shallower, so I'm not so sure. So they came pretty much after, first before the molded plastic ones, if I understand correctly. This is all before I was born, so it's not like I was there. But I imagine that plastic door, and I think the first plastic door were the Yamato brand door. I expect they probably came around in the 70s. I expect. Could be a bit earlier, but I expect that's probably when they came about, sort of widespread. But even then, even with your plastic door, Borga was an expensive thing until very, very recently. My wife's not first Borga, but her Borga, first adult size Borga. It's a machine stitch Borga. It's got a fiber door. And that was the best part of $3,000 when she bought it. But yeah, things have changed a lot in the Borga market in the last 20 years. So yeah, which is good. It's made Kendo much more accessible to much more people. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining me today. We had some fantastic questions there. I know some of the answers weren't necessarily exactly the answers some of you might have been looking for, but I hope it was still useful. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar to keep these videos coming and to enjoy wonderful, fantastic Kendo equipment, best in the world. Thanks for joining me. That's my cue to go, I think. See you all next time. Bye-bye.